Alright, what's up everybody? Brian back here with another recap video. This time recapping last night's episode of NXT, which was the go home show before next week's NXT New Year's Evil event that will be going head to head with AEW's New Year's Smash episode. Of course, last night on AEW they did a tribute show to Mr. Brody Lee, who passed away this past weekend at the age of 41, in what I thought was a really emotional, sad, and a tremendous way to celebrate the life of a tremendous talent. For those of you that did not see it, I would recommend checking it out. It was an emotional show filled with a lot of emotion. We saw Eric Rowan, or Eric Redbeard, as he is now being called, make an appearance. And we also saw the Dark Order picking up wins in their respective matches. A couple of news and notes about that episode. Apparently on the post show last night, Tony Schiavone announced that the current version of the TNT Championship that was given to Brody's son at the conclusion of Dynamite last night, that current design and current version of the title is being retired, and a new version, a new championship will be made for the current champion, Darby Allin. So Darby Allin did not lose the TNT Championship. They just decided, out of respect to Mr. Brody Lee, that they would retire the current version of the championship, as they gave it to his, I believe, his 8-year-old son, Brody Lee Jr., as out of respect to Brody Lee, and saying that Brody Lee Jr. is the TNT champion for life. So that was another piece of news. Also, the song that they played in the tribute video at the end of Dynamite last night for Brody Lee, apparently Tony Khan bought the rights to that song just for the tribute video, which was a really sad tribute video filled with pictures of Brody Lee with his family, as well as they even had WWE photos with him and Eric Rowan holding the SmackDown Tag Team Championships, him with Bray Wyatt, I believe him with Randy Orton, if I remember correctly, was one of the pictures. So it was a pretty cool video. If you guys did not check that out, I would recommend checking that out, because I thought it was a really good tribute video and tribute piece to, like I said before, a great talent. But getting into NXT last night, the NXT episode, it was basically, like I said, the build-up to next week's episode of NXT New Year's Evil. And it was also last night was the NXT Year-End Awards, which featured a lot of different awards being handed out to different NXT superstars. So let me just go right in through and recap everything that went down. In the opening match saw Bronson Reed defeat Isaiah Swerve Scott. Apparently, they turned Isaiah Swerve Scott heel last week, or over the last couple of weeks. I haven't watched NXT for the last few months, as well as Dynamite. So I'm trying to play like catch up before. Hopefully, I'm going to try to catch up today. But last night's episode, Bronson Reed defeated Isaiah Swerve Scott in the opening match. For NXT Breakout Star of the Year, That went to Shotzi Blackheart. We saw the Grizzled Young Veterans tag team defeated Breezango. Afterwards, Grizzled Young Vets would have a confrontation and of sort with Ever Rise. We had for Tag Team of the Year, Undisputed Era. They took that honor. It was also announced that in 2 weeks, the Dusty Rhodes Classic will be making its return. And representing Undisputed Era in that tournament will be Adam Cole and Roderick Strong. So that's going to be interesting to see how far they go and whether or not they could win again. Let's see. We had a Xia Li and Boa promo, basically finishing up their training, and apparently they're going to be at NXT New Year's Evil next week. So that should be interesting to see what kind of what they do as far as, being there next week. Mercedes Martinez, who made her return to NXT apparently last week when she attacked Io Shirai, the NXT Women's Champion. She picked up a win over Valentina Feroz. I'm sorry if I butchered that name, but Mercedes Martinez, coming off her brief run in Retribution, made a return last week. So obviously, she's going to be gunning for the NXT Women's Championship, currently held by Io Shirai. Speaking of Shirai, she took home 2 awards last night. She took home NXT Female Competitor of the Year, as well as Overall Competitor of 2020. So 2 huge awards for Io Shirai. As far as NXT Male Competitor of the Year, that went to Adam Cole of Undisputed Era. We saw Pete Dunne pick up a big victory over Roderick Strong. This has been a rivalry that's dated back since 2018, when the 2 of them teamed up in the Dusty Rhodes Classic, and Roderick Strong turned on Pete Dunne in the finals to join Undisputed Era. For Match of the Year, that honor went to Finn Balor and Kyle O'Reilly from NXT TakeOver 31. Of course, those 2 will meet next week for the NXT Championship. We had a Tommaso Ciampa and Timothy Thatcher fighter pit promo. That will be happening next week when Timothy Thatcher and Tommaso Ciampa face off in the NXT Fighter Pit, which is kind of like a version of how WWE used to do the Lion's Den match whenever Ken Shamrock would be in there back in the 90s. We heard from Kyle O'Reilly and Finn Balor ahead of their NXT title rematch next week. Basically, both of them would cut promos on each other. They would then be interrupted by Karrion Kross and Miss Scarlett, who made it very clear that it doesn't matter who walks out next week. Their time is up, and Karrion Kross would say, "Doomsday is here, tick-tock." He would then be interrupted by Damian Priest. Of course, these two athletes go one-on-one next week in a huge match at NXT New Year's Evil. And they would get into a brawl that would end up with both of them on top of electric boxes, or equipment boxes, I should say. And both would go through tables. We had a Rhea Ripley and Raquel Gonzalez promo hyping up their last woman standing match next week at New Year's Evil, which I think is going to be pretty good, hopefully. We heard from Legado del Fantasma, the trio of NXT Cruiserweight Champion Santos Escobar, Raul Mendoza, and Joaquin Wilde. They would be interrupted by Monday Night Raw's Lucha House Party, Grand Metalik, and Lince Dorado, and this would lead to a tag team match being made for as the next matchup, as Lucha House Party would pick up the win. It was Grand Metalik and Lince Dorado taking on Mendoza and Wilde, and Grand Metalik continuing to build momentum, coming off his big victory last Monday night on Raw over The Miz, as he would pick up the win in this tag team matchup. And apparently, I think next week he's going to be challenging Santos Escobar for the Cruiserweight title. So that's another huge match. I think that's the match that's been signed. So that a huge opportunity for Metalik. If that is the case, if anybody knows, please let me know in the comments below. For Future Star of the Year, that award went to Austin Theory of the Way, of the Gargano Way group, with him, Indy Hartwell, and of course Candice LeRae and Johnny Gargano, the NXT North American Champion. So Austin Theory won Future Star of the Year. I had already mentioned that Io Shirai won 2 awards. She won the Female Competitor of the Year and Overall Competitor of the Year. And then in the main event, Johnny Gargano retained the NXT North American Championship over Leon Ruff, finally breaking the curse of him winning a title and not being able to successfully defend it in his first title defense. So Gargano broke the curse last night, retaining the North American title. Overall, an okay episode. Obviously, there was a lot of hype and build up to next week's episode of NXT, of New Year's Evil. So that was pretty much it for the show, for the episode last night. If you guys watched NXT last night, let me know what you guys thought of it in the comments below. Thought it was an okay show. So with that being said, this has been my NXT recap for last night's episode. As always, I am Brian, and thank you for watching.